Welcome to Fraud Friday, Kris Roglieri Special Edition, September 27th, 2024. Hey, for you bankers out there, that's a certificate. This is training on how not to get ripped off. Delaney, Sexton, Lance Sexton. We haven't done an update for a while. Lance, I stepped all over you, but this is more important right now. Kris Roglieri has now been officially indicted on 5 counts of wire fraud. He is still sitting in the Delaney, am I pronouncing it right? The Rensselaer County Jail. But in the lawsuit, he's on specific, $20 million fraud. Excuse me, it was a $5 million that he moved to a bunch of different banks and actually paid off some other people. Go ahead, Lance.
Oh, this is so interesting, Bob, because I have the opportunity to work quite a bit with various agencies who are investigating fraud, and I know Delaney loves reading about investigating fraud. So wire fraud is probably the easiest charge that they can nab people on, because if somebody fraudulently receives money, the first thing they want to do is go in and transfer to here, transfer to there, and then it's wire fraud.
And it's easy to track. And
so the guy, what this tells us about Kris is he did not ever expect to get caught.
I don't know about that, Lance. You may talk me into that position. My position is he thought he could get enough investors to cover his tracks, and one of these things would hit, and he would be able to get out of it.
So I love that thought process, Bob, because I did a lot of construction lending back prior to the Great Recession.
Right.
And there were builders that we worked with who would start a new construction and spend the money inappropriately, and then they'd borrow for another new construction and finish house one with house two's proceeds.
Right.
I've seen that.
And the theory is that, well, I'll get lucky and I'll be able to pull it off. And of course, that never happens, Delaney, right?
No, very rarely. And if it isn't caught earlier, you wait some years and you'll be caught.
Yeah, I mean, it's an all too sad tale of people being not looking at the facts, Lance, not realizing what is going on. And what's interesting about the wire fraud charges of the 5, I believe there were 2 of them, Delaney, that went to fund projects.
Yes, if I look here, so $950,000 was transferred to a different client as partial loan funding for their real estate project. And then that might be it. There was another $2 million transferred to a credit union account held by a Virginia company. So, you're right. About $3 million went to other projects.
But of course, allegedly. he had to reward himself. And Delaney, what did he buy from this initial $5 million indictment?
Well, he might have transferred that $3 million around, but he did spend $101,000 for private airfare for a family vacation in December. He spent $84,000 to purchase a Rolex Day-Date yellow gold diamond bezel watch, and then $400,000 was to pay for some of his legal proceedings.
Bob, I can tell you, Delaney can confirm that I have never bought private round-trip air transportation to the Caribbean.
Lance, even if I could afford it, I don't think I would enjoy it. And I certainly won't enjoy the trip knowing that it's fraud. And of course, he did this after he was sued and went into an involuntary bankruptcy. So he's flying around when he already knows the courts are getting involved with this business and the feds are knocking on his door. How can you enjoy that, Lance?
No, I don't think you could. I also look at his second item, a Rolex watch. When I first got into the finance industry, I was at a loan committee meeting trying to get a loan approved, and the chairman of the board had a Rolex watch, and I was just oohing and ahhing about the Rolex watch. And after that, I would go to the mall, to the jewelry store that had Rolexes. It was some jewelry store called Blakeman's in Northwest Arkansas, and I would look at the Rolexes and say, I really want one of those. But Bob and Delaney, Delaney, you may remember, you were young. I probably took you to the store and made you look at them with me. But The Rolex watches I was looking at were like $2,500.
Yeah, well, they went up this price a little bit. The other big news, Delaney, is that we had an auction last week. Tell us about that.
We did. Now, we've been keeping up with this. It was the 8th annual Saratoga Motor Car Auction, and there were 4 of his cars that were being auctioned here. It was on Saturday. I actually watched it for a little while, and
Wow.
they managed to get a pretty good amount. I think it was just over $807,000 back across those 4 cars. So the first one, a 2014 Novatec Ferrari F12 in Largo. Now, this seemed to be the car to get. It was sold for $341,000. It only
Wow.
had 16,000 miles. It was one of 11 built, the only South American edition, one of only 4 in North America, and it had a V12 engine.
Wow, it's the only one of the Daytona Nero color. That's crazy.
341,000. Mr. Liquidator Lance, is that a good price? I assume it is.
It appears to be, guys. Going through the liquidation process, we use auction houses. I've yet to have a car sell for 341,000, but I've not had any nearly as unique as this one. When you look at this, it's one of only 11, so it's hard because normally when you're selling cars, you determine a value, you take them to auction, you want to sell, say 75-80% of the value, somewhere in that ballpark. But this being one of 11, getting a value was probably pretty challenging. So it appears to be a great recovery, Bob.
What else did they sell?
There was a 2005 Mercedes-Benz CL65 AMG, and it went for $39,600. It has a V12 twin turbo, 612 horsepower, 5-speed automatic transmission. Just a really well taken care of car.
Originally priced $187,000.
Yeah. Oh.
Here we go.
We also had a 2019 Mercedes-Benz G63 AMG, which went for under $120,000, but just about. It had a 4-liter, 8-cylinder, twin turbo, 577 horsepower, original engine, an automatic transmission, matte black exterior, black leather interior with red diamond stitching, air conditioning, the good stuff, power brakes, steering. Yeah, sunroof.
But I actually had a loan customer that had one of these that took me to lunch one time, and he drove quite aggressively on the way to lunch, and you probably would have to replace the tires very frequently because these have tremendous power. 0 to 60 real quick, Bob.
Real quick, that's fair
enough. They're like a Jeep Wrangler, except they're like a Jeep Wrangler with a jetpack on the back.
Very good. Well, I have the Jeep Rubicon, but I'm not. My 0 to 60, I think, is a little bit slower than on this vehicle. Go ahead, Delaney.
All right, and our last car, when we've talked about this, we've talked about his supercars and how he loved to modify some of his cars, and this would be one of them. It went for $308,000, and get ready for this list. 1,066 horsepower with ECU upgrade, stainless steel downpipes with 200 cell cats, BOV adapters, stage 2 turbo upgrade, upgraded racing clutch, TCU upgrade, Rentac or track series forged wheels, carbon fiber bumperette delete. I don't know much about that.
You did good with that.
Sun black wrap with orange details, carbon fiber wheel extractors, and only about 70 or 7,580 per owner.
Miles by the owner.
I love it.
Yeah, I don't
Delaney,
know.
I'm not going to ask you to define any of those because I certainly don't know any of them. But so I'll throw it to Lance. Lance, do you know any of that stuff?
I just know that this is an incredibly cool looking car with a lot of great add-ons, but all these look like first class add-ons, and it appears, Bob, to be a great recovery on this one as well.
Yeah. And it's so sad. I don't know how you can enjoy these toys and know that it's built on a house of cards. And that is the dichotomy. If you have the money, knock yourself out, enjoy it, enjoy the toys. But the stress that you put on yourself,
Yeah.
You're not enjoying life, even as you're buying these toys. And as Delaney said, you're doing the upgrade. And that's what I always find fascinating in these stories. He must have convinced himself, well, I can get out of this. I can just do another deal, another deal, another deal.
Yeah.
And I'm going to conclude this session with a personal story. I was a speaker, moderator at an event in Las Vegas this week, the B2B finance group, and I met a gentleman who Kris had pitched. He pitched the $4 million investment to get a $20 million line of credit. And I'm not going to use the exact word that he said, but this, you could feel the passion and the emotion from this potential. Well, I guess he was a victim. Once you're pitched, you're a victim. But you could tell it affected him because he thought Kris was a friend. And he was being pitched by someone who he thought was a friend, Lance. And we joke about these cars, but the real damage that was done to the employees, to the people who put up the money, and now that company went down. I mean, these are true crimes that affect people personally. And even though it's called white collar, the emotional damage inflicted by what Kris's actions is tremendous.
Well, and I think we've gotten past it, but, certainly for a period of time, loan brokers as a group probably got a bad rap because of things like this. And a pretty common characteristic, guys, of somebody who does something like this, they have the ability to make you think that you're their best friend.
Yeah, it's sad. Anyway, great reporting, Delaney. Thank you very much. I do want to go back, Anna, just to one slide. I don't know where the source of that picture is. The new mugshot that we have. Delaney, where did we get that? This one here. Where did we get that mugshot? Do we know?
You'd have to let me go back and check my source. I might be able to find it really quick.
That's fine. It is a new mugshot, and obviously he is not happy. Also, I did want to go ahead. I think we skipped over the slide. Go ahead on this. The Times Union reporting. The reporter up there is doing a great job. And
Absolutely.
What did he say about this, Delaney?
Well, he just pointed out one interesting thing about this indictment. If he is found guilty of these charges, a $5 million civil judgment will be automatically filed against him.
Okay.
And they'll seize the $700,000 in 2 different bank accounts and the Rolex watch. And according to him, such forfeiture is rarely used in wire fraud cases. Rather, it's typically seen in drug cases where stolen money or assets are used to commit other crimes.
Yeah, he's as he's sitting in county jail with a revoked bail because of threats against FBI agents. This is certainly a different scenario than where he was even 1 year ago, Lance, when he was planning Caribbean trips and spending money. Go ahead, Lance. I'm going to give you the last one.
Well, like I said, it's Bob, I think I initially said he didn't think he was going to get caught, but I'm really sold on your thought. I think he was going to just keep doing projects and use new projects to fund old projects. And that never works. I mean, I've seen that with home construction companies. Not only is it fraudulent, but it just don't work. But I believe what you said is right, Bob. He thought he'd just keep getting new deals to fund old deals.
It's easy for things to snowball.
I think that's called a Ponzi scheme.
Ponzi scheme, yeah.
Thank you very much for joining us for Fraud Friday. Thank you, Lance. Thank you, Delaney.